Hello, my name's Catherine Richards, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on structural theory and social work. So, first, I just want to talk about the basis of it. The basis of structural theory is that everyone does not start from the same place of advantage as everyone else. So, I have three images at the top. They all come from the same location, which is referenced. And the first one shows that two individuals both have ladders in front of them, but one only has rungs, only one rung at the bottom, while the other one leads all the way to the top, making it easier for them to climb up. The same is with the second, except for the ladder's just shorter. And the third one has the same last step, but all of the little steps leading up to that aren't there, which makes it more difficult for that person to achieve the same as the person next to her. Next, I want to show a video that I really think emphasize the passion and deep core of what privilege is and not having privilege and equity versus equality. It does have some sensitive content regarding rape and violence, but I felt like it really spoke to me about this topic. So here we go.
In response to an anonymous confession submitted to the University of New Mexico.
Why isn't there a Caucasian or white club?
There's one for every other race and ethnicity we have on campus.
Even women have their own center.
What about white guys?
Just because we're white
Doesn't mean we shouldn't have our own group or program. To me, this is racist.
Even sexist.
Dear Mr. Anonymous, we are truly sorry the University of New Mexico doesn't provide a group for you to call your own. How unfortunate it
You
must
probably feel like such an outcast.
be. As minorities, we would just like to take this moment to say
Our
apologies. We know exactly how it feels to be alienated and stripped from your rights,
treated differently due to the color of your skin,
to be assaulted with pressure hoses and police
to have to
batons.
fight for the right to your own body.
It's taken us so long to catch
With
up.
our movements and picket signs.
When was the last time white men fought for their equality?
You are the standard.
The
The
baseline.
core of our curriculum.
You are the white noise that every frequency in America is dialed to.
The thing about white privilege, Mr. Anonymous,
Is only the people who don't have it know that it exists. Being white and male in the United States of America.
means nobody asks questions.
The benefit of the doubt is your
You
birthright.
stand neck deep in opportunity.
Atop your pedestal of melanin and history, your inheritance is worth more than you can imagine. Mr. Anonymous,
Creating your own group will not make us equal
when we were never equal in the first place.
Check your history books.
The last time white men created something inclusive, genocide took off its shoes and got comfortable. The foundation of this country was built over the mass graves of Native Americans. 95% of the indigenous population wiped out.
To make room for America.
The truth is, Caucasians do have their own club.
It's
It's called
called
Capitol
Capitol
Hill,
Hill,
where every law, bill, and declaration runs through a printing press of pale pink fingers.
Before raining down into the storm drains of barrios and ghettos.
This is what they call trickle-down economics.
If that's too hard for you to grasp, you can always join a frat club here at the university.
I hear the one that roofies freshman girls during Hell Week is all about keeping it white.
Luckily for them, the Women's Center was able to determine if they were raped or not.
Be a part of this long-standing tradition where your ancestors...
Force their prejudiced penis in any hole of diversity they find fit. We
get
get
it!
it!
You feel so left out!
I know it's so hard to fathom.
How could anyone possibly have it worse than you do? The odds say you won't make it to graduation.
That our women are more likely to have abortions than diplomas.
That our men are more likely to be convicts than leaders.
Open your eyes! Immigrants are still fighting border patrol.
This is still the face of
I
poverty.
still won't get paid as much as he will.
I'm denied the right to marry the man I love and our children. If I'm ever allowed to have them, we'll be victims of this system.
Don't let your inheritance
Be one of ignorance.
There's no need to feel left out or unimportant.
The first step to achieving equality
Is realizing this system is rigged. We are unbalanced.
Our nation's equilibrium is broken.
But not irreparable.
You have the power to recognize us as allies.
You can raise us up as easily as you can bring us down. We encourage you to move forward with us.
Walk in our shoes.
Be an outcast,
an underdog, a revolutionary. Learn what it means to fight for what so many are entitled to.
We cordially invite you to join us. There is plenty of room for everyone.
talked about how the system was rigged in the first place. It really just talks about the structure and how not everyone starts off equal, which is why you need equity. So, structural social workers promote consciousness of the disparities between an individual's opportunities and resources. Without consciousness, society would not understand the necessity to promote change regarding inequitable power structures. So, here's another video that I think very clearly shows the actual differences in lines as the teacher has the students actually step into different sections. So I will play that for you guys now.
We'll take this. It's a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I've said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people over here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go! If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
So I thought that that was a very good representation of structural social work and just the foundations of structural systems theory. So the structural model rests on 6 practice principles in social work, according to Wood and Tolley. The worker must be accountable to the client. They must follow the demands of the client's tasks. They must maximize the potential support in the client's environment. They must proceed from an assumption of the least contest or conflict. The worker must help the client deconstruct oppressive cultural discourse and then reinterpret experience from alternative perspectives. Finally, the worker must identify, reinforce, and increase the client's repertoire of strategic behavior for minimizing pain and maximizing positive outcomes and satisfaction. I want to talk about Winberg, who talked about structural social work. It talked about how it's a moral theory concerned with unearthing underlying causes for social problems, and it offers direction about the values social workers should adopt. Because the field of social work ethics has been dominated by an ideology which privileges objective decision making focused on a worker and client relationship, structural theory recognizes the gaps of context, power, and unequal access to resources. While structural theory is useful in outlining the necessity of a collective resistance and the agency and solidarity, it has been less successful in suggesting ways to accomplish this resistance and push against it, which I'll talk about more in the weakness section. Um, the overarching themes of structural social work provide a clear direction of moral values and offer a means to examine ethical decision making in practice. For social workers, the relativism of post structuralism, without this core structural social work, would leave practitioners without a path to navigate through ethical dilemmas. So the Carilla and O'Grady article, they discuss the relevance of a structural social work framework for understanding Latino immigrants' experiences of structural oppression. The article utilized a structural social work lens to examine how dominant ideologies inform the development of social systems that initially perpetuate structural oppression. So this ideology, which you can see is at the bottom of the diagram I have here, builds up through social institutes in society. Community wellness programs feed off of that, and social relationships feed off of that as well. So it's all just kind of working into it. The oppression goes upwards, as you can see from the arrow, and we have to work downwards as social workers. The structural social work is the building block that leads to shaping the values and beliefs that should be paired with alternative models. So the alternative models are the things you do after realizing the societal issues. The partnership of models utilizes personal healing, promoting alternative patterns of interaction, supports individuals, and redefines how they see themselves and reclaim their self-worth. These interventions at a personal level empower community residents to become involved in advocacy and community organizing initiatives, which in turn promotes structural transformation. Findings from this article suggest that when social workers are intentional in implementing interventions that both promote personal healing and challenge oppression, social systems, and underlying ideologies, the efforts to change local community contexts can cumulatively transform to a more far-reaching structural transformation. So another article talked about the violence between individuals. This is Renison, Jacques, and Berg. How violence between similar races is less likely to involve more lethal weapons than violence between culturally dissimilar individuals. So it kind of talked about the structural implications of even just violence in the United States. The structural model views the social environment as the primal focus of change due to the power dynamics and societal oppressions. Poor and marginalized individuals often are the population most deeply impacted by structural theory. So I want to talk about marginalized individuals in rural areas. First, I want to watch a short piece of this TED Talk.
Force and was assigned to Mountain Home Air Force Base and was a part of the Air Police Squadron. Upon first arriving there, the first goal that I had was for me to identify find an apartment, so I could bring my wife and my new baby, Melanie, out to join me in Idaho. I immediately went to the personnel office. And talking with the guys in personnel, they said, hey, no problem finding an apartment in Mountain Home, Idaho. The people down there love us because they know if they have an airman who's coming in to rent one of their apartments, they'll always get their money. And that was a really important thing. He says, so here's a list of people that you can call, and then they will then allow you to select the apartment that you want. So I got the list. I made the call. The lady answered on the other end, and I told her what I wanted. She said, oh, great, you called. She said, we have 4 or 5 apartments available right now. She said, do you want a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom? Then she said, let's not talk about that. Just come on down, select the apartment that you want. We'll sign the contract, and you'll have keys in your hand to get your family out here right away. So I was excited, jumped in my car, went downtown, and knocked on the door. When I knocked on the door, the woman came to the door, and she looked at me, and she said, can I help you? I said, yes, I'm the person who called about the apartments. I was just coming down to make my selection. She said, you know what? I'm really sorry, but my husband rented those apartments and didn't tell me about them. I said, you mean he rented all 5 of them in 1 hour? Under the circumstances, I figured that was the best thing that I could do. So I bought the trailer, and then I asked him, I said, can I just leave the trailer here? And that would take care of all my problems. I wouldn't have to find another trailer park. He said, before I say yes to that, I need to check with management. So I got back to the base. He called me back, and management said, what? No, you can't leave the trailer here because we have promised that slot to some other people. And that was strange to me because there were several other slots that were open, but it just so happens that he had promised that slot to someone else. So what I did, and he said, you shouldn't worry, Jim, because there are a lot of trailer parks. So I put out another exhaustive list of going to trailer parks. I went to one after another after another. And I got the same kind of rejection there that I received when I was looking for the apartment. And as a result, the kind of comments that they made to me, in addition to saying that they didn't have any slots open, one person said, Jim, the reason why we can't rent to you, he said, we already have a Negro family in the trailer park. He said, and it's not me, because I like you people. He said, and that's what I did too. I chuckled too, right?
So I skipped around the clip a little bit, but basically what happened is that he tried several different places that his generals and his coworkers suggested to him, told him that it wouldn't be a big deal, it would be easy, and he continuously was being met with, well, we don't have an issue with you, but we don't want there to be any sort of issue in the community because it was a rural, close-knit community. So, when discussing resources, especially in the rural settings where resources can be scarce and social norms are heavily held, the values of structural social work become extremely important to keep in mind. When you are a rural social worker and you are trying to get resources for your clients, trying to understand the positions they are coming for and advocate for them, it's very important that you keep in mind what sort of difficulties they may have in getting resources that wouldn't occur to someone not in that group. So last I want to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses. The strengths, of course, we've talked about the core value and moral ethics that the NASW is based on. All of our codes of ethics and values are really based on this understanding of cultural competency, of disparities between different individuals in different situations, and how we must advocate to resist against those. The weaknesses are social work does not contribute to the discussion and examination of practical solutions to inequality. So, structural social work tells you that you need to fight against this. We need to advocate. We need to push against this, and that it'll change society in general. However, it's the post structural theories like feminist theory, strengths theory, all of those sort of things that give us kind of the step by step process on what exactly we need to do to push against this. So that is the end of my presentation, and here are my references. I just want to thank you so much for participating in this and viewing my presentation, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and have a good end of your semester.